What the heck is chrononutrition? Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Dr. Jack Schaefer. I'm a doctor of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, as well as a functional medicine practitioner here in Boulder, Colorado. And today, I want to talk about chrononutrition. This is actually a pretty interesting thing. I've had a couple of patients actually bring this up to me. And as far as traditional Chinese medicine goes, this isn't really a new thing. But let's talk about it. You know, the term chrononutrition is gaining a lot of prominence in the world of health and wellness over the last few years, and it revolves around the idea that when we eat is just as important as what we eat. It aligns the body with your natural circadian rhythm, and that actually is the key. And it acknowledges that our internal clock influences the various physiologic processes in our body. So there's this whole comprehensive exploration which delves into the science and principles and potential benefits of chrononutrition. Okay, so let's understand it a little bit. Think about it this way. Our bodies operate on a circadian rhythm, this internal clock that is synchronized within the 24-hour day-night cycle. These rhythms are a big part of nature as a whole. If we look at the world around us, we have night and day, which is a rhythm. The waves have rhythm. The seasons have rhythm. You know, there's constant rhythms, and our body is full of rhythms, right? This night and day 24-hour cycle actually impacts our sleep, our metabolism, our hormone production, our physical and physiologic activities. You know, these are all really key elements of chrononutrition. And what we need to do is we need to recognize the peak times for nutrient absorption, peak times for our metabolism, and peak times for energy expenditure throughout the day. If we can understand that, then we can actually hack our diet just a little bit with our nutrition, right? So what's been sort of discovered through research as well as patient reports, as well as traditional Chinese medicine, there are a few ways to look at this, okay? So first, we have to understand there's power in our breakfast. So we've always heard, or often heard, that breakfast is one of the most important meals of the day, and it really does play a crucial role in chrononutrition. So consuming a balanced breakfast within the first couple hours of waking up kickstarts our metabolism. It stabilizes our blood sugar and provides essential nutrients for sustained energy. Now, this breakfast should be a mix of protein, healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, and it really will set a positive tone for the day, and also reduces our cravings and tends to, from patient reports, promote better food choices later on the day. People who eat this type of breakfast tend to snack less, and when they do snack, they tend to snack less on garbage. Okay, so that's something for us to consider. So a typical chrononutrition breakfast for me might be, I like to do stir-fried kale with some black beans and a couple of eggs. It's not exactly really high calorie. There's a lot of fiber in there, and it really can get the day going for me. Okay. Then when we look at lunch, right, as the day progresses, our body reaches a peak in its nutrient absorption during lunchtime. So since that's our peak of nutrient absorption, we actually really want to choose nutrient-dense foods during that time. This might be lean proteins, vegetables, maybe some whole grains if you can eat those. Those all support our sustained energy levels and our cognitive function. Now, it's important that we don't overeat. Notice that I'm not saying for lunch we need to eat a lot of food. I'm saying we need to eat a lot of nutrient-dense foods. So we need to get those nutrient-dense foods in. We don't really need a lot of volume, okay? But this well-balanced lunch can actually prevent that mid-afternoon energy slump that many of us get. And that actually helps you have a better productivity, more focus, those kinds of things. That's really important. You know, we need to get some food in our body for lunch, and we need to have really good nutrient-dense foods in there, okay? Now, I'm going to talk about volume here in a minute, but let's finish this out. Now, dinner, right? Dinner is the final meal, okay? It's the final major meal. When we look at chrononutrition, however, we want to think about it this way. Our body is starting to wind down at dinner time. So what we should do is opt for a lighter dinner, right? Lean proteins and vegetables should really be the core of it, but we want to minimize heavy foods, rich foods, alcohol, all of those kinds of things for a few reasons. One is, as our body is winding down, we need less food in our body because we don't have such a demand for the calories to do things. Eating lighter, easier meal also makes it easier to digest, and that prepares our body for a more restful sleep. So if we make sure that our dinner isn't too big and too heavy, we should actually sleep better and we should actually digest better. Now, the major thing about this thing is we also want to make sure that we have a few hours between our dinner meal and bedtime. That will really ensure optimal digestion and promote and contribute to a better quality of sleep. Okay, so let's think about metabolism, right? So that's the basics of the meals, right? So a moderate breakfast, maybe a little more nutrient-dense lunch, and a really light dinner. Okay, when we look at our body's metabolism through chrononutrition, we recognize that our metabolism fluctuates throughout the day. And that concept suggests that consuming larger meals earlier in the day, when our metabolic activity is higher, can contribute to a more stabilized, more efficient calorie utilization, and that actually can help weight management. Okay, and then distributing that calorie intake throughout the day, with focusing on nutrient-dense foods, will align your body with its natural rhythms. So your body needs those calories in the morning, it needs some calories in the middle of the day, it needs less in the evening. Now, we also find that there's an impact on our blood sugar when we do chrononutrition. So it can actually really help balance our blood sugar out. So balancing our macronutrients, which is carbs, fat, and proteins, particularly in the morning and the early afternoon, can actually help prevent those spikes and crashes in blood sugar that many people experience. And in a lot of folks, they'll actually it'll contribute to enhanced insulin sensitivity, and it'll reduce the risk of metabolic disorders like type 2 diabetes. We also see this pretty commonly in the clinic. Another place that we can look at chrononutrition and its benefits is in our sleep quality. One of the things that I've found here in our clinic is that when we start to lean towards this approach with our patients who have sleep issues, they actually start to sleep better. So aligning our circadian rhythm with our nutrition can definitely impact our sleep. So if we consume our heavier meals in the early day, our lighter meals closer to bedtime, that'll support optimal digestion, and that minimizes sleep disruptions. It also helps foster this natural sleep-wake cycle and promotes a more restorative and rejuvenative night's sleep. So that's something to consider if you have a sleep issue, right? Now, while there are general guidelines to chrononutrition, it's essential that we have to acknowledge our individual variations. Our lifestyles, our work schedules, personal preferences, they all can influence how somebody implements these chrononutritional principles, right? So the idea is that we need to tailor these guidelines to create a sustainable, personalized approach to eating. So there's a few sort of tips that are practical to kind of keep in mind. So I'm going to go through these real fast for you. So start with a balanced breakfast. So prioritize nutrient-rich breakfast with a combination of proteins, healthy fats, and some complex carbohydrates. I like sauteed vegetables, though that's a really easy way to do it. You can use beans. That's another way to do it. But those will kickstart your metabolism. Now, don't fall into the trap of overeating. Make sure you're not eating enough so that you feel stuffed. Just get a nutrient-dense, thick breakfast going. Then we want to optimize at lunch. So again, nutrient-dense foods, they'll help sustain your energy and your cognitive function through the afternoon. One of the things I've really found is folks who have that tendency to get that afternoon slump where they start to fall asleep or get really drowsy or brain fog in the afternoon, if they eat this kind of breakfast, and again, they eat a nutrient-dense lunch that's not too big, They usually don't feel the need to nap. They usually are more cognitively alert in the afternoon, and have a better sense of energy and well-being in the afternoon. And then the third one, the dinner, we want to plan for a light dinner that includes lean proteins and vegetables. So avoiding those heavy foods. The next thing we need to make sure we do in this is drink plenty of water throughout the day. A lot of times people will tend to underdrink. That makes them feel hungry and they tend to overeat. Well, their body is really telling them that they're thirsty, not hungry, but they'll end up wanting to eat more. So consider that. That being said, then we need to mindfully eat. So we need to pay attention to our hunger and our fullness cues. So we're eating slow and mindfully rather than eating quickly and overeating, because that overeating becomes a real problem. Okay? And then look at some of these individual factors that may be for you. So do you have certain food sensitivities? Does your work schedule create certain demands on you? All of those things need to be taken into consideration. We also need to actually consider that is something like intermittent fasting something I'm trying to approach? Because a lot of our patients right now are working with intermittent fasting as part of their dietary protocol. Now, what's a way to work around intermittent fasting and the chrononutrition? They're not necessarily incompatible. A lot of people will do their intermittent fasting where they just skip breakfast and go all the way to lunch because they're really trying to get that 14 to 16 hour non-feeding window. That's fine, and you can do that. But what I would suggest you do is if you like intermittent fasting, you can keep that going with chrononutrition, but move your fasting window to start in the dinner time range rather than breakfast. So eat a good breakfast, eat a good lunch, maybe eat your last meal as a really early light dinner so that you stop eating and then you can get that 14 to 16 hour window till your breakfast in the next morning. That's not actually that difficult. And we've actually seen here in our clinic, folks who do that as a way of modifying their intermittent fasting get better results than people who skip breakfast. So something to consider. But if we do that, then we may actually start to lose some weight if we're feeling kind of stuck on our weight and it's not dropping, for example. The last thing I kind of want to mention about this, and I mentioned this earlier here, was that the volume that we eat is really important. So when we're looking at how much we eat, there's a saying in Chinese medicine where you only want to eat till your stomach's half full. And what that really means is, we want to fill our stomach half full of food, 1/4 full of liquid, and 1/4 empty. If we can keep a little bit of room in our stomach, we actually will have better digestion. So most of us tend to eat too fast. And when we eat too fast, then we tend to eat too much. And we eat too much, then our digestion doesn't tend to work as well. We tend to have more problems with it. We tend to get things like acid reflux, heartburn, gastritis, stomach aches, constipation, a lot of these other things. We're really not meant to eat a full stomach of food. The metaphor that I like to use is imagine a pot on the stove. If you're trying to make a stew, which is something your stomach is doing, and you fill that pot all the way to the top and then put the lid on, is that going to cook very well? Probably not. It's going to boil over, which is reflux. You're not going to be able to stir it because it'll spill, so you end up with a really poorly cooked product. That's the same with our digestion. Our stomach has to have the room for the acid to do its job, especially if we're aging, because our stomach acid tends to get weaker as we get older. So you need to make sure you have enough room in there for your stomach to do its job. So just, try and eat a smaller amount than you think you might need. Okay? So what are some of the benefits that you might consider with chrononutrition? Improved metabolism, potentially higher energy, potential blood sugar regulation, potential better sleep, and maybe even some weight loss. So that's it. That's our conversation about chrononutrition today. If you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out to us here at the office, and I'd be glad to talk to you. Have a great day.